Hey guys, I know this video has been a long time coming and I apologize for that. It's been kind of crazy around here, but we are going to talk layering iron on vinyl. Now, anytime, unless you're working with a patterned vinyl or something like that that already has multiple colors in it, anytime you want multiple colors of vinyl on a shirt, a bag, or any type of iron-on project you're doing, you are going to be cutting and possibly layering different vinyls. Now, there's a couple ways to go about that. With some vinyl, like Cricut's Iron-On Light or Everyday Iron-On, you can layer one color of vinyl right on top of another one, and it will work just fine. Everyday iron-on and iron-on light, standard vinyls like that can also be used underneath most other types of vinyl like glitter vinyl, holographic, foil. You can put the everyday iron-on underneath that and be okay. Now, when you are working with some of the specialty vinyls, your glitter, your foil, your holographic, your stretch vinyl, different things like that. In most cases, you do not want to layer on top of those. And this is why, because when the vinyl's ironed on, it adheres to the fabric. And if you have something like your glitter vinyl, for instance, that has a rough surface area, I know some people have had luck pressing other vinyls on top of that, but chances are you're going to get better, longer lasting results if you slice out your image and then layer on your vinyl so that every color of vinyl is a single layer and it's not laying on top of each other, because it would be kind of like trying to stick a sticker onto sandpaper. With that rough surface, it's just not going to grab it. And I imagine with things like the holographic, it's a pretty thick vinyl, so it's going to you're going to have trouble adhering things on top of that because it's also a slick surface. So it'd be like trying to stick something to Teflon. It's just not going to work well. So, like I said, when you're doing that, I'm just going to bring out a couple of the pieces of the design I made here. Like this piece, my cauldron. I have some green slime that's going to go on top of that. These are both regular vinyl, and so these are just going to go right on top of each other. Whereas I'm also going to be using foil and glitter vinyl in this design, but you can see down here, here we go, you can see down here I've cut out parts of this image, and yes, I know this isn't perfectly lined up here, but you can see when it goes on the shirt, it's all going to be just one single layer fitting together like a puzzle. And another thing as well, and I haven't really found anything saying you can't do this. This is just my personal preference. I don't like to do, even with regular vinyl, I don't like to do more than 3 layers max of vinyl on top of each other. Normally I don't actually go more than 2, but some designs, if you have to go more, you have to go more. But I try to slice it out whenever I can, just because I think it just gives you a smoother feel to your shirt. And if you get too many layers, especially if you have like a full front or back design, too many layers on there, your shirt's going to start to feel really stiff and heavy. And if you slice out your images, you can really cut that down. Okay, so how we go about actually layering the vinyl, we're going to get into that next. But as you can see, I am working with a white shirt here. Now, as you can also see, I have several pieces of my design with different types of vinyl. Now, I'm going to show you what my personal preference is for doing this and the order why I do it this way, and explain to you along the way. So as you can see, when you have a sliced design like this, you've got stuff that's going to be all over. So how do you make sure, because like this piece I'm going to be putting on first, so how do I make sure the whole design is centered based off of this one piece? What I am going to do is I am going to build this from the bottom up. So, as I said, this piece will be going on first. And so it's going to be the bottom layer. The next one that's going on will be my cauldron. So I'm going to line that up and put it on there. Then I've got my green witch's brew layer, I guess I'll call it. Put that on. And then the last one I am going to do is my foil layer. And I am going to get that lined up and stick it on. The nice thing about working with iron-on vinyl is that this carrier sheet is sticky, but it's not permanently sticky. So you can stick all of these carrier sheets together, and if it's not quite right, you can unstick them and try again. There we go. Okay, so once we got that on, what I like to do, I've got a pressing mat here, and I'm going to be using an easy press today, but you're going to be using basically the same method whether you have an easy press or you're using your home iron, or if you have another kind of heat press. I really like to use a pressing pad of some type. If you don't have a pressing pad, use a towel. But you want to get your shirt all nicely laid out. Try to smooth it out a little bit. And I know some people do the trick where they will fold the shirt in half and iron a crease in it to get the midline. I personally don't care to do it that way because I found that some shirts are just a little off, and it's so easy to get that center crease off, and then if you're just going by that crease, you can end up with crooked designs. What I try to do is make sure everything's straight, and look at the center of the collar. Try not to pay too much attention to the tag because sometimes those are off center as well. But I like to look at the center of the collar and find my midline. And then you can place your design. And I don't always measure, but you certainly can. Make sure that you're fairly even. I know the widest point of my design is here at the bottom, so I'll go down here. And we look like we're about 3 1/4 there. And 3 1/2, so we're not quite centered. About 3 1/2. I'm too far the other way. And at this point, some of your layers might shift around slightly, but that's okay. It is giving you a basic layout. And then what you can do is carefully pull off your top layers, leaving just the first one on there. Now, I am actually starting out with the glitter vinyl, and here is why I do that. I'm starting out with the glitter vinyl because it gets pressed at the highest temperature. And when I'm working with different vinyls, I pay attention to that because I know that the foil that I'm going to be using as my last layer gets pressed at a much lower temperature. For this glitter, I've got my Easy Press. Since I'm not using the Easy Press matte, I'm using the same settings as with the towel. And so I've got it set at 340 degrees. But I know the foil, that's my Easy Press telling me it's been on too long and I haven't used it. It lets you know so that you don't forget to turn it off, which is good. I know that the foil gets pressed at only 315 degrees, and what's going to happen if you use that foil that's pressed at a lower temperature first and then go through and press all of these vinyls on afterwards, there's a very good chance you're going to end up overheating your foil, and it's not going to look very good. Because I've done that before. I have overheated foil before because it's a little more sensitive than some of the others. So what I like to do is go with the toughest, highest temp vinyl first, and then do the other ones from there. So I am going to use a protective sheet, take my Easy Press, and apply gentle pressure. And I'm not setting a timer on this. I am basically just going to press this down just long enough that I'm able to peel off the carrier sheet. So I'll check that there, and it could still use a couple more seconds. Now, I know you can see the numbers on the Easy Press, and if you noticed on the last press, it went down from 340 to 325. And when you're working with an easy press or another heat press, that is absolutely normal. It will go through some temperature changes in order to regulate the temperature, and at times it will even go above temperature, and at least on the easy press, when it does that, the little cricket icon will turn orange. But that is just part of how it keeps things consistent. Okay, so we've got our first glitter layer on there. The next one I'm doing is a black cauldron. So I'm going to line that up. I'm going to decrease the temperature on the easy press to 330 degrees for this one. It just chimed at me, letting me know that it's ready. I've got this layer all lined up, nice clean lines everywhere that it's supposed to have them. Once again with the protective sheet. And just applying a nice gentle pressure. If you're using a home iron, you may have to apply slightly more pressure. A regular heat press, it does the pressing for you, but if you're just doing, the shirt I'm using is cotton, and so you shouldn't need any more than a medium pressure on that. And once again, I was just doing a few seconds, just enough to set the vinyl so I can pull off the carrier sheet. Now, if you are using a home iron, you notice how when I'm putting on the easy press, I'm not moving it iron all around like I'm actually ironing a shirt. You want to, even with a home iron, you want to put it on and hold it in one place, and then if it's not big enough to cover your design, pick it up and move it. By doing that, you're not chancing shifting around or wrinkling your vinyl. Okay, so this green piece, same kind of vinyl, so I'm still at 330 degrees. And a nice gentle pressure just for a few seconds. The standard vinyl really doesn't take very long at all. Okay. Sorry, had to reset the camera there. Okay, while I was doing that, resetting my camera, I mean, I realized, and I also readjusted the temp on my easy press to 315 for the foil, but I realized we experienced a common problem that happens with vinyl, and I'll show you what it is and what I did to fix that. You know, when we first started, my foil was all in one piece, but let me lay that in there like a puzzle, the way it was, and show you what happens. Sometimes when you're working with vinyl and you apply the heat, it shrinks ever so slightly, and then, sorry, I don't want you to just be looking at my table here. There. It shrinks ever so slightly. And then, I'll actually bring you over here so you can see, it just doesn't quite line up. So, what I did is I cut my foil design carrier sheet into separate pieces, and I will lay those in. I will lay those in, and we will still be able to achieve our design the way it's meant to be that way. It's just laying down a few more pieces, but we can still press them all at the same time. The one thing you want to make sure of, if you are ever working with multiple carrier sheets, is that you don't have any vinyl going on top of carrier sheets, because it'll stick it right onto the top of your carrier sheet and not your shirt where it's supposed to be, and then we'll just end up with a mess. Okay, so I've got that on there. It looks good. My letters are all where they belong. Going to lay that over the top, and I am now going to put this over the whole design, and I'm going to do a press for 30 seconds. My heat press doesn't have a nice timer like this. I'm kind of liking this about the Easy Press. I don't have to count in my head. Okay. Now, going to turn the whole sheet over, leaving the carrier sheets on. I still like to use my protective sheet. And I'm going to press actually for another whole 30 seconds on the back, just because I know I've got several layers on there, and I want to make sure all of them are stuck down well. You know, before I got this Easy Press to try out, my husband had found another heat press used for a very, very, very affordable price, and I ended up with that, but I was actually worried. I have carpal tunnel in both of my wrists, and I also have a bad rotator cuff in my right shoulder that I re-injured several months ago again. But this foil has got to cool off before I can remove the carrier sheet. So I wanted to talk to you about this Easy Press. But I was worried with those conditions of my wrists and my shoulder that an Easy Press would be difficult for me to use, because I know with a home iron, when I was using that before I got a press, I would have to put, you know, my shirt and stuff down here. Then I would have to get a stool to raise myself up higher so I could get enough pressure with my home iron to get everything on so it would stick well. And by the time I was done with a shirt, my hands would be aching, my shoulders would be aching. At the same time I re-injured my shoulder, I had also bruised my ribs. And so, yeah, I would just be one big ache by the time that was done. But with the Easy Press, I have not had any issues with that at all. Despite my bad shoulder, despite my bad wrists, I have found the Easy Press very, very convenient to use. Now, as I said, this foil is a cool peel, so you want to wait a couple minutes for it to cool off. And then what you want to look for is, I'll try to get you down so you can see here. You can see, there, you can kind of see it some on the regular vinyl, where you can start to see the texture of the shirt through the vinyl. And we can see that on part of the foil, not quite all of it yet. Of course, on the glitter, you can't see that, but there, you can see it on the top part of the foil. Do you see that texture on its? That is what you're looking for in your vinyl. You can see the weave of the fabric through the material, and that lets you know that it's on there properly. And we aren't quite there, and I was probably off-centered some when doing my pressing. But, so I am just going to do a few more seconds on this side of the design, because I think that's where it was missing. Once again, using my protective sheet. There. And now I'm seeing the weave of the design there. Okay. Sorry, my camera's kind of out of focus. But there. You can see the texture of the material on that. Get it up here in the light. And you can see everything fitting together, just kind of like a puzzle. The only one actually being layered one on top of the other is the green on top of the black. But so that goes through showing you how to layer several different kinds of vinyl with some tips and tricks along the way. If there's anything in this video I didn't cover that you have questions about, please just you can comment on the page, comment on the video, send me a message, and I'll do whatever I can to help answer more specific questions for you. But what I've shown is kind of the methods that I've used, and so far it's worked well for me on all of the things I've done. So anyway, guys, hope this video helped you out, and I will be getting this file posted to the community, so you can use it too if you would like. That's all for tonight, guys. Thanks.